So it's 2 o'clock here in the south of France. I'm blessed to be safe, I guess. A truck driver, man driving a truck, has killed like 78 or 80 people and injured a whole lot more. Driving through Nice, which is neighbouring to where I am, and Cannes in the south of France. And had a beautiful night at the beach club at Baoli, amazing fireworks, beautiful energy. It was just so lovely. And then terror struck and everyone panics and runs home. So now I'm locked safely in my house, which is fantastic future. To think that this is how we're going to live, because this is the second neighbourhood that has been affected that's close to me in France with terrorism. I'm taking a big leap here and I'm assuming that this is ISIS and terrorism, etc., etc. So I, in all of my work, I work on solutions for some fairly terrible things happening on the other side of the world that our companies and our governments are responsible for. And I can't help when I experience that atmosphere tonight of people terrified and rushing home, rushing to their cars, that that it's sort of in some way slightly comparable to the terror that people are feeling in Syria and what they felt in Libya and Iraq and Palestine and the insurgencies in the Ukraine, where people are, you know, not leaving their homes and sort of verging on starving because they're afraid they'll be shot, and all through Africa. And often these are about resource and power transfer, and it all tracks back to our governments and our companies. And I saw this amazing post by Harrison Ford today saying, vote for no president, or basically, I vote for no one for president, which is so true, because I just feel like our governments are this complete machine for corruption, and they're creating an atmosphere of terror on the other side of the world. They are involved in these wars and insurgencies, and whilst it says that it's whilst there's a justification for all of it, the road to peace is peace. It's not war. And whilst this terror is created on the other side of the world, there are going to be people who bring that terror back to us in the beautiful and safe places, where we are living in countries which they deem responsible for hurting their countries and destroying their lives. So we have a relationship with all of this. This is not, we are not poor victims who are being driven down by trucks and shot at with guns. We are in nations where our leadership and our corporate governance involved in the defence industry are profiting hugely off war and conflict. And whilst that relationship exists, whilst whilst war is legal and whilst war is profitable, there is going to be huge suffering, and there are going to be people who experience that suffering and want to inflict it back on us. Whilst it doesn't make sense to me that they target the everyday people and not the decision makers and the politicians responsible for ordering the bombs to drop on their heads and or provoking the insurgencies, it doesn't make sense to me that they target the everyday people on the street. However, that is because, for me, obviously, the benefit of targeting the everyday people on the street is for our companies and our governments to be heading back over to create more war and more terror. But again, because it's legal and because it's profitable. So, I can't help but think, how does this end? How do we not become the military empire? How do we not have militarized streets, which we have already, but increasing? How do we not have the increasing fear that when we're sitting in our local cafe or walking down the street that we're going to be bombed or shot or driven over by a truck? And I can't help but consider that we need war to be illegal, and we need defence industry to be non-profit. No one should be able to make money off the instruments that devastate lives on the other side of the world. And whilst there's no profit in it, and whilst we can't retaliate to attacks with violence and aggression, then if we can change that equation, we have a chance. We have a chance for a future of peace. But if people can profit off it, and if people can gain resource and power and control by legally going to war, i.e. those people in our governments, running our governments, and the more privileged side of the world who are aggressing the more vulnerable sides of the world. Whilst that equation exists, that terror is going to come back to us, whether it's the people involved in I don't know, this is awful, but keeping the people of a nation glued to a television to find out about terrorist attacks, and keeping their media entities alive for that reason, or companies who want to increase their sales and bombs and guns and want to rally an entire nation of people in anger in order to be able to send them to the other side of the world using their taxpayer dollars to attack more people to make more profit. Whilst that exists, we are going to live in an increasing military empire. They're going to have more and more control, and they're going to have more and more control not only of our streets and our freedoms, but of our tax-paying budgets. So I've got to say, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me what's going on, because I think if they were terrorists and they wanted to actually retaliate for the pain that has been caused on the other side of the world, then they would attack the decision makers, which are the politicians. The politicians always seem to be very, very safe. Or they would attack the defence company owners. They would target, but they don't. So, that's my first question is, why are they attacking the people? Because the natural response is anger and support for more war, when more war is going to lead to more terrorist attacks. And I don't know, the equation doesn't make sense to me. But whoever's responsible for this, it tracks back to us, because whilst we let people profit off destruction, and whilst we let our governments go to war to create that destruction, then we are responsible for being the source of the creation of the terror. So I don't know, I would say future generations, that's us, that's me. I'm 38 today, I'm still a future generation. We need to start looking at our part in responsibility in creating this reality, because otherwise the future is very, very, very terrifying. It's the second time I've been directly affected by this, and I've got to say it's not something that I want to experience again, except I think that it's going to be something we experience again a lot. And the only way it's going to change is if the laws change, and these people who are profiting off war, whether by a power gain, a resource contract, or selling the defence items in the first place, are stopped.